Hey, geography students. Hope you guys are doing great. Miss all my wonderful ninth graders. I'm coming at you today from I guess I'm in my kitchen today. You'll notice that I've got a couple of friends with me. I have, of course, my little good friend Petronella, who's going to continue to join us in our conversation about Africa. I also found a wonderful friend. You might recognize him. Yes, it is the Black Panther, coming to us all the way from Wakanda in Africa. And since I decided to invite him along, I thought that I should also invite my favorite superhero. Dun dun! Captain America. Say hello, Captain America. He likes to be front and center, so I'm going to include him in our our lesson today. We aren't going to do a PowerPoint today, so I have that on my brain. But anyway, I have invited Captain America and the Black Panther to our discussion today because we're going to talk about something that's affecting both the continent of Africa and the continent of North America, South America, and basically the entire world. And that is the wonderful virus known as coronavirus or COVID-19. Now, I happened to notice yesterday as I was looking through some of my news feeds that Africa is going to or is currently suffering from some pretty significant problems related to COVID-19, probably worse so than any other place on the continent or on the globe. I know also from my husband, who has a friend who has relatives, who she's actually from Ecuador, which is in South America. There are certain pockets in South America that are getting pummeled right now. We don't hear about them as much, but it is affecting them as well. I mean, it's a pandemic, and the definition, some would say, of a pandemic is something that is affecting multiple locations on the globe. It's affecting everybody. We have the benefit of living in America where if we do get sick, we have access to some pretty phenomenal healthcare systems. Part of the reason that we're all sitting at home and separating from other people is to prevent our medical systems from being overwhelmed by a quick rash rise of people who need hospitalization, intensive care, and potentially respirators. People that will experience those sorts of problems related to COVID-19 are tiny, 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 tiny. And however, there are enough of them in every country, people that have underlying conditions and are older, that if they all get sick at the same time, a lot of our healthcare systems are not designed to be able to absorb that, especially on a pandemic level. One city might be able to absorb it, but when you have multiple cities in a country that are trying to care for very, very sick people all at once, it becomes alarming. Now, I want to segue to Africa. Just the nature of Africa, the way that Africa has developed over the centuries. Africa has many pockets of remote areas that do not have access to good health care, good medical systems, doctors, nurses. Some of them don't even have access. Hi, Chapman. Don't even have access to clean drinking water, let alone medical supplies or respirators. Their healthcare systems in many parts of Africa are just basic ibuprofen, aspirin, may or may not be even a doctor available. And so Africa is going to suffer in ways that we will not suffer. Their economies in many places of the country are very shaky, and they will not be able to absorb 4 to 8 weeks of shutting everything down. And the fact that the rest of the world is shutting down limits their access to things that they need, limits the resources that they have available, whether it be a nonprofit that works with them. And it could also create political instability in countries where someone might take advantage of the crisis. So we're starting to hear news trickling in from parts of Africa. Now, my understanding from what I have seen is that the places of Africa currently that are encountering a rise in COVID-19 cases are large cities along the northern Africa along the Mediterranean Sea, in countries like Algeria, Morocco, Egypt. All of these places have large airports. They have international travel, in your international trade. A lot of the countries along the coast, west and south, that were colonized by the British, where they have large white English-speaking populations, or even pockets of French populations that travel back and forth to the continent of Europe. You're seeing pockets of I keep wanting to say Ebola, pockets of COVID-19 as well. Now, much of Africa remains very isolated and remote from the rest of even the people within their country. But keep in mind, Africa has many, many, many refugee camps. And if this were to spread in a refugee camp, that could be catastrophic. So, all that said, we're not doing a boring lecture today and a boring PowerPoint, although I do enjoy those. I don't know that you do. So I'm going to hand over the teaching reins to you guys today, and I am going to assign you a report to do. I want you to act as investigative reporters. I want you to use the online skills that I know that most of you have, and I'm going to ask you to submit this report in a Google Doc. A Google Doc, if you have not already, hopefully you're familiar with it now, but the Google Doc will allow you to keep track of how many words you have used in your report. And so I will include an assignment on Google Classroom that will tell you the specifics that I'm looking for. But what I want you to do for your lesson today, during that 90-minute period that we would have in class, is to submit to me by the end of this block, the end of this period of time. So for 9th graders that are in my 9A class, that would be 8:30 to 10. And my students that are in my second class, that would be 10:30 to 12. I want you to begin a report or an investigation into the problems that COVID-19 is currently having and potentially going to have on the countries of Africa. And I would like for your report to be 1,000 words minimum. And I would like for your report to use at least 3 online sources. You can use as many as you want. And I'd like you to target a couple of different countries or areas of Africa. You can pick the northern and the southern, or you can pick Zimbabwe and Morocco. It doesn't really matter to me, and your reporting or your investigative reporting might actually take you to those countries. So what I'd like for you to do today, again, will be in writing, but I want you to find your sources, and I want you to submit a rough draft of what you have found out. I expect that your report will be in at least a 3-paragraph format. Might be more than that, depending on how many words you have, how many sources you have. But at the end of the period today, I expect you to submit the sources that you're going to use, the areas of Africa that you're going to target, and make every attempt to begin to put together this report of 1,000 words. You might not quite get there, but I expect that you will get pretty close. And because you're able to type, the words will come to you fairly quickly. I will warn you, I am going to check it for plagiarism. So don't plagiarize. Essentially what that means, you should know this, but any information that you discover in your researching of the information needs to be rewritten in your own words. You are not to copy and paste from the internet or an interview that you happen to find. You need to make sure it's put in your own words. Now, you can quote people or take quotes out of things as long as you put the quotes around them and that you give proper credit to who it's due at the bottom of your report, just with an asterisk or something along those lines. And everybody can submit that differently. I'm not going to tell you to do it in a certain format, but you cannot plagiarize. It needs to be in your own words. But if you do choose to use portions of articles specifically and quote somebody or quote a specific line out of an article, it needs to be in quotes, and it needs to, the person or the place where you got the information needs to be credited at the bottom of your report. If you just summarize almost word for word or an idea, you still need to give credit to whom credit is due, unless you completely rewrite it and it's your own idea. So I will be processing suspicious papers to check and make sure that they are not plagiarized. So So with that said, I'm going to give you the remainder of our time together today to begin this report. Again, do it on Google Docs, submit it through Google Classroom, and I'm going to give you a timeline, a due date, so to speak, at the end of our block period. If you cannot work on this project during the period that you've assigned, you need to email me and let me know specifically, Mrs. Campbell, I will be working on this from this time to this time. But I have that 90-minute period, and that's what I expect for you to use it for today, or if you let me know otherwise, we'll make some other accommodations. So I expect to see everybody submitting at least a rough draft at the end of the 90-minute period today. So I love you guys. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. And I guess cheerio from the Campbell household. And I look forward to seeing and talking with you guys on Thursday.